Hello and welcome to another episode of Casual Friday. We missed you last week. Hopefully you missed us as well, or at least noticed that the show wasn't there. We also rugged you on Altcoin Thursdays yesterday, so clearly the content schedule getting a bit wonky. But here we are, we're back. The market, to be fair, is around the same price as it would be if we'd done Casual Friday last week. So I guess not all was lost, but no shortage of headlines in that time either, as well as flip-flopping on the timeline. Don, don't know if you've noticed, but
oh yeah, glorious.
yeah, the relationship between sort of bias and price moving is in a bit of an odd space because we've just been in the same miserable daily range post breakout, and you know, I've seen 12k to 60k, the latter coming from you, of course. So
yeah, I was just about to say the only one that's targeting 60k is me now.
I'm sure we'll get a chance to discuss that. Before that, however, I wanted to start with a bit of a tangent, actually, because I was browsing Twitter, as I normally do, because at this point it's like 98% of my life. And, you know, people just make their threads about tokens or coins or positions, and there's usually a large contingent of people who reply to it with like rocket emojis, right? Now, you and I have been around actively on the social media side since 2017. I don't think I've ever unironically used rocket emojis for anything, right? And it just made me realize that there's a serious number of people who like genuinely log into Twitter, see a project, usually some low cap shitcoin of which they're holding bags and couldn't sell even if they want to, and they're probably down 90%. And they take their device with which they could access all of humanity's knowledge if they wanted to, right? With an internet connection, and instead just spam rocket emojis under shitcoins. Like, what kind of person or personality do you think it takes to be that person? Because I just can't empathize whatsoever.
No, me neither. I mean, that's just fucking crazy to me. Imagine spending your day like promoting your coin like that. No one's going to see it anyway. And the people that are going to see it, i.e. us, apparently, they're going to stay the fuck away from that coin. Like, the moment I see rocket somewhere, I'm like, I don't want to buy this shit. I'm going to be as delusional as this person. So I just rather not. So I think if anything, that's going to get people to be bearish rather than bullish. But maybe that's just my cynical nature.
I'm just so curious about the frame of mind, you know? Like, you have an internet device, you have an internet connection, you could go study like an astrophysics course from MIT or something if you wanted to, and then instead you open up Twitter for some shitcoin and spam rocket emojis under it. I'm just really curious.
Technically, I mean, if you've bought already and you're all in, I mean, there's nothing else to do. I think they're just sitting there being like, I'm not making the money that I thought I was going to make. Let me see if I can make it better.
How can I help? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's one way to do it. Yeah, I don't know, man. I just from time to time I just browse Twitter and see the debates, discussions, or people behaving in a certain way, and it just seems so detached from reality. And it's like, I wonder what those people look like in real life and what the rest of their lives look like. You know, like how they speak to their spouses and their family, how they are at work, if they are that person spamming rocket emojis under shitcoins. But I guess our entire comments section now is going to be rocket emojis. So I've kind of brought that on us. So we should talk about markets because we're going to have another weekly close in a couple of days. The monthly close is tomorrow as well. So the high time frames, we get some candles on those. As we know, all the billionaires in the world never trade before a candle close. They wait for it. And then once there's confirmation, that's when they pile in their hundreds of millions into the market. So it's a very important kind of juncture to be aware of. The one point I wanted to make before that is I'm still seeing a fair bit of commentary about a pullback to 24.3, be that, you know, people point that out as a support resistance flip or as a demand zone, like where this impulse came from, and saying it's a nice area for a higher low. And I still find myself like fundamentally disagreeing with them. I don't know where you sit on this argument or whether the length of the consolidation will change your views or whatever else. But for me, if this is a trend forming breakout, like, dude, you don't want to see it give back more than half the breakout candle within a month, you know, which is what that pullback scenario would create. I think it's one of those instances where people sort of look at support resistance flip or, you know, just these structures completely devoid of context and think, oh, well, it broke out, so retest is bullish. But I think if we start giving back, even if this low time frame, well, by low time frame I mean by our standards, so like daily time frame, consolidation starts to break down, I'd be pretty skeptical of fishing for a higher low or just of the market in general. And the way I've sort of tried to demonstrate that, so the audience will see a weekly chart right now on BTC USD with all the price action, and I've just drawn some levels that I did for one of the Monday Markets episodes, like the 6K level, the 4K breakout level, the 12K long time resistance, the 20k level, the 30k level. It's like, dude, these things don't pull back if they're trend forming whatsoever. And maybe there's some selection bias here and I've missed out on some levels, but I just find it fundamentally inconsistent. If you're bullish but would still be bullish and or want to pull back to broken resistance turn support, to me that's just I don't know, without precedent almost, and would completely contextually be unattractive, even if it is in terms of candlestick make boing a level of support. How are you viewing, it's been 2 weeks now post breakout. What do you think of that argument and where the market is in general?
Yeah, I generally think we shouldn't go that low. And there's a few reasons. One is basically exactly what you said. It's not typical for Bitcoin to do this. But even if you ignore that and you just look at it from a narrative point, as in like basically we had, if you go on the daily chart or like on the 4 hour, the dip that we had towards 26.9K, that was Binance FUD, right? That was Binance FUD. Basically people were like, oh shit, Binance. And I'm sure we're going to talk about it later. But Binance is getting sued. There's a whole bunch of garbage going on basically, and we faded that completely, right? Like it just immediately shot back up. And I think if you go back below that, you don't only have like market structure breaks, you also have the whole narrative kind of start falling apart, because a bunch of people shorted that one, so you wouldn't want to, like, if it's bullish, you wouldn't want to get them out. Like it was bearish news that usually leads to selling and to people kind of leverage shorting, and that happened, and then price went up, and I don't think it's been squeezed enough for these kind of people to be squeezed out. So it's basically there's a bunch of people on the bearish side of the market that would get bailed out if this happened. So I think like if you start breaking that, you're just bound to go lower. So for me, I think that would basically end the giga rally that we've had from 20K to almost 30K. And I think we would reach like a new kind of market that would go sideways, if not trend down for a bit. So I don't really get, like, people always want these deep pullbacks. And sometimes the context kind of screams for it, like a dip and a quick kind of wick to the downside. But right now it's pretty tough for me to kind of see that. I'd much rather, like from a bullish perspective, I'd much rather have this just break out. So kind of agree with
that's
you.
Expected, right?
Yeah, but
from a bullish
honestly,
perspective, I'd rather have a breakout. No, of course, I know what you're saying. Just
it's kind of like, because I'm in from much lower. So like technically, if this dips to 25K and then goes to 50, makes no difference to me, right? Because it's all UPNL. It's not really like I'm gonna like make more, make less if it dips before. But just from kind of looking at the market, I'd be considerably less bullish if we went to 25K. If we went to 25K or 24, that support, I would kind of look to buy it, but I would try to sell 26, 27 again. Because at that point, I think we would kind of enter like a sideways, if not, like I said, trending down environment for a little bit. The high time frames, they have a lot of room to go both ways. So like that wouldn't necessarily ruin the high time frames, but the low time frame momentum most definitely would be. So I agree with you 100%. It shouldn't pull back, and if it does, I don't really see, like, at that point you can start shorting the bounces, I think, if you want to. And that's not been the case the entire rally, in my opinion. Like shorting anything has not really been the best idea. But if that happens, I think you can start shorting.
Would you say that therefore that's your updated swing invalidation of sorts, at least TA wise? That I think the last time we spoke, you mentioned that back below 20K or even a bit lower. Yeah, well, around 20K, that weekly wick was a good invalidation level for the swing thing, because at that point it's back within the range and really shouldn't be going there. It's the USDC bottom, so on and so forth. Do you think now that this 26.5-ish level is an updated invalidation for that, or are these kind of signals of different magnitude?
Signals of different magnitude, but if I had a leverage position, yes.
Okay, nice.
So like my spot position, I'm willing to give it time. And if we close the next monthly, which is quite a bit away, but if we close that below 23K, I'll most definitely get out. Same with the weekly. If you close the weekly below 24K, I'll get out. But like low time for momentum, we definitely shouldn't. Honestly, we shouldn't go to 24K. I think at that point, I'd wait for the bounce. Yes. So like if I was basically trading this without having any positions and only trading it leveraged, right now I'd bet on up. And if we start breaking down, I would try to short the bounces. That's kind of my thesis on this whole thing.
No, I agree. It's nice when you have contextual confluence between like technical levels and also kind of how those technical levels came about. In this case, sort of Binance related and just news flows in general.
Yes.
And you know, this is like one of the better indicators, I think, for market health is seeing how it reacts to news. We spoke about it the entire downtrend, that good news does nothing, and stuff that is even reasonably or unreasonably perceived as bad news just craters the market. And it seems for a period now, pretty much from sort of, since the USDC time, basically, bad news has been shaken off or absorbed quite well. And good news, well, we don't know what that is, so it remains to be seen, I suppose. So it's like a decent sort of trend or just bid strength proxy to see how the market responds to it, as opposed to just a headline on its own. So I agree that you can, especially when the technicals align, you can carve out some pretty good invalidations from there. So that's helpful. Let's take a step back. We did mention the monthly close at the beginning of the show, and it looks like it's going to close as a breakout, right? Unless something catastrophic happens in the next 7 hours and 43 minutes, it's going to
Don't jinx it, bro.
I know, that was so precise, right? In the absence of that, it looks like a monthly breakout on the back of a monthly engulfing as well, right?
Yes.
And I don't think you get particularly clearer breakout candles than this one. I used to be inclined to argue that, the breakout is too big. But I've just realized that doesn't tend to be a very good argument, because all that means is you're seeing more of what you want to see, i.e. strength. And the opposite of that would be worse, i.e. it's a breakout, but it's not that strong, for a bullish argument that's less compelling than a breakout that's quote unquote too strong. I don't know if that makes any sense whatsoever, but that's kind of how I've been thinking about it. And it's not one of those ambiguous candle closes either, you know? There's nothing more annoying than that, especially as you and I have sort of come across on the weekly and daily. Sometimes you get a bit of a chop close, or slightly close above or slightly close below, and it's a nothing burger, and it wicks to the other level, and it's just not as obvious. Whereas as far as determining this to be a breakout candle, that's I don't think there's a ton of space for reasonable ambiguity here on the monthly. And I think so if you're going to swing trade the monthly chart, which is an experiment in patience, I think, more than anything, the 23K breakout is a significant monthly breakout, and then the next resistance on the monthly is at 35. Just to front run an objection, yes, there are wicks in the sort of 28, 29 type of area, but those wicks are accommodated on weekly and daily charts. So it's not like we're ignoring them. It's just on the time frame. This specific time frame, the monthly, there are better levels than that, and on average, candle bodies perform better than wicks. So what do you think of this monthly close? And also, what do you think of next month? Because, the argument about trend forming breakouts, like even on the monthly time frame, with maybe one exception at the 10.7K level, if I recall correctly, this thing doesn't tend to really retest, and the same considerations we discussed on the weekly apply to a large extent on the monthly as well. Do you think this could be one of those breakout candle and then next month is a nothing burger candle, or is this all momentum, all kind of green light type of thing, at least as far as monthly, weekly goes?
I would like to see a little bit of momentum next month. Because we have the really good level at 35K nearby. So I think we could just see next month rally into that and then sell off from there for a little bit. I'd kind of make that be our pause. But I could also see it just close and then next month just zero movement at all. Both make sense to me, but I think momentum would be the best, and it looks like momentum to me. Like I'd be surprised if next month we weren't trading above 30K. At some point. And I think 35K isn't really that far off. It's close enough, and we've consolidated on the daily time frame long enough that I think we could even have the steam to go for 35. And then we can have the pullback that people want just not to 25 or 24, but to 28 or 29.
I thought you were going to say 12.
The inner capo in me.
Yeah. We all have a bit of capo in us, right? Like,
oh yeah,
100%. Especially you and I, who've just seen the exchange, like the price of Bitcoin almost trade to zero, unless the major exchange didn't, BitMEX didn't get pulled. I think we all have a bit of capo in us. It's just in different doses and at different times.
You just
but that inner voice is there, bro.
Yeah, never go full capo, basically. But a little bit of capo sometimes is not.
Yeah, you need it. You need it for sure.
But yeah, I think in general, like it's an interesting point. The thing is, we've had a 9 month, or not mine,
like
7
6,
month,
8,
7 month consolidation. You could add like 22 that candle, so 8 months of consolidation below this level, right? Below the breakout level of 23K. I don't really see a reason to fade that at all, high time frame wise, just ignoring all the low time frames, everything. If I was just trading the monthly, and honestly, that's something that way too little people do. I think it's the most brain dead, easy thing to trade. It's just hard to hold, basically.
Yes.
Because
can confirm.
Yeah, I think it's basically because people look too much. If you trade on the monthly and you just look at it every other week, that's like the time frame to be successful in. Like, I think you could be really, really bad at trading and still make a shitload of money on the monthly. Whereas you have to be really, really good at trading if you want to make like money consistently over years on anything below the daily. So I think like it's very, very underrated, this high time frame trading. And if I just look at it from that perspective, we had a long consolidation. I'd expect at least like 5 or 6 months of upside. That just makes sense to me. And that doesn't mean it has to just walk up 5 or 6 green months in a row like we had it after the COVID crash. But it does mean that I think we're going to spend at least the next 6 to 9 months above 23K. That's kind of my going thesis. I'd be shocked if we didn't. And that's why I have like I'm going to puke every single position that I have in crypto if we go back below 23K. Like on a monthly closing basis, because I think that'd be catastrophic. The chart would look completely horrendous.
Yeah.
And it would also just kind of like betray everything that I know about this market, which is basically
strong
if the
words,
monthly
Don.
breaks out. Yeah, I mean,
it sounds like you're going to get emotionally damaged by a technical move.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'd start crying.
Fair enough.
No, but
you haven't started yet.
No, I think it's like monthlies are not to be faded. It's the one thing that you can take away. And if you do that, you're probably gonna be better, like a better trader than most stuff you see on Twitter. It's been stupidly effective, and we've talked about it for years now. And we've been getting made fun of for years for it as well.
Man, it's so tiresome.
Like, haha, the monthly candle closed, like, and then people are like on Twitter, like commenting. It's for some reasons mostly the bears that always make fun of the monthly closes and the monthlies in general. And then you get a close above the monthly level and you giga rip, and no one talks about it anymore.
And the monthly SR levels, really good as well.
Just too good. But we'll see. I don't wanna praise it too much, and then kind of kill it. So we'll just be
crash
silent
time
about
frame.
it.
Don't look at it. Impractical. Just garbage.
Exactly.
We're all on the 5 minute anyway. That said, Dom, 7.5 hours for this thing to close below 23.3. So you never know.
I mean, government is going to dump on us enough.
Yeah, the US government's dumping on us, and CZ is absorbing it. That's the dynamic at play here, which we'll discuss, I'm sure. But yeah, I think that's fairly self-evident for the monthly. Just like when we broke above 20K, the argument, like on most casual Fridays and technical roundup, was, well, you have a very clear invalidation now to be bullish, that anything below 20 is bad. It's basically the same, just move the level up by 3K. I guess is the simplest way to express it. So, hey, we've broken up 23.3. Below it would be really bad, but as long as we're above it, might as well give it some space, I think. The weekly time frame, same breakout, more candles, because it's the weekly. On this occasion, above 24.3. And then we're entering our second week of consolidation. We actually spiked previous week's low, which is something I sort of talked about on one of the Monday Markets things. And then formed a daily range, which is quite narrow if you look at it, right? It's basically from 27K to 28 and change. That's really not much. In terms of like, you said the Binance lows and then validation and whatnot, but as far as this daily consolidation goes, I'm assuming the same logic applies to it as well. That if the bulls are correct and the trend forming argument is correct, so on and so forth, this should be a pause before trend continuation rather than distribution. So do you have a similar view as for invalidation on the daily time frame, that like, daily closes below what, 26.8, 26.6, or just evidence of this consolidation breaking down would be quite bad? Does that transfer?
I think we have really, really neat invalidation right now for like and I mean, I know that like 95% of the people watching are just leverage trade apes, I think. I think it's just like
shout out to
how
the real
crypto
ones.
works.
Yeah.
But I think 28K is a really good invalidation now. We start closing below that on the daily time frame, which is basically exactly the daily open of today. It starts looking like it's gonna roll over, and if it starts looking like it's gonna roll over into like kind of the Binance lows, I don't like that too much. So that's kind of like the leverage trade invalidation for me. Yeah, if we start losing 27K on a closing basis on the daily time frame,
we go to 12.
That's quite bad. No, but I think at that point, like at 27, you get pretty much a free ride to 25. Like if we start losing the Binance lows, I think it's pretty free to 25, and then I could see a bounce from there. So that's kind of like how I look at it. Like if it starts rolling over, this kind of structure is really bad and can go quite fast, quite deep. And then you would just hope that it's just a wick, right? Because wicks to 25, 24 would be bad in general, but wouldn't be as bad. So you can still salvage the chart basically if you wick to 25 and then the next day you're trading back at 27.
Yeah, like 10% higher, please, at that point.
Yeah, I mean, that's okay. But if you start like going into 25 and then you close there, and I mean, that the next day is probably going to go and bounce, but the days afterwards are going to be shit.
Yeah,
so
yeah. You've given back basically the entire momentum candle at that point.
Yes. And I think at that point, like the bears have been so starved that they would step in massively. I think they would get squeezed again. I don't think there's any world in which the bears win in this in the next, like, I don't know, in the next month or two.
Well, the aggressive ones anyway, right? The ones who can't pick their spots properly.
Yeah. Because there's more money to be made on the bullish side of things, and has been for quite a while. So that's just my kind of interpretation of what's been going on. But
that's
the daily
works.
Yeah, yeah. The daily is pretty clean as well. Not as good as the weekly and monthly though. Sure. The weekly and the monthly, I mean, you have solid invalidations there. On the daily, you can still get faked out. I don't think you're gonna see, if you see a monthly close below support or weekly close below support, I think it's cooked. If you see a daily close below support, I mean,
it's cooking.
Yeah, exactly.
Fair enough. It's nice. You have like this early warning system, how you've described it, where you kind of raise an eyebrow if it's a daily close below 28K. If it pukes through the Binance lows, you raise both eyebrows, and then if it's below 24, you just start shitting, pissing, crying, vomiting violently. So nice little progression there if the market starts to roll over. Fair enough. I don't think there's anything else to add, really, as far as BTC USD goes. I could start, get on the 4-hour and draw some sort of range and talk about if it closes above, do this, that, the other, but it's a bit noisy, to be honest. It's sort of like 27K as your support-ish, 28.6 as your resistance, and then we've been diddling in the middle earlier today at 27.8. The good news is I actually bought the bottom of this dip, but then I paper fucking handed it for like 1 hour instead of 4. Like 2 hours after I closed, it went straight to my target. So thanks for playing. Nice bull market. But yeah, that's your good old BTC USD. Now ETH, our favorite chart, Don, and the USD chart just keeps getting better. I can't stop myself from trading this thing. It's just so clean and so beautiful. But perhaps we should start with ETH BTC. Although that's not really much better. I still just a miserable thing, isn't it? It is. But yeah, I've still got the weekly with the two, the 6.6 and the 5.5, 5.6, whatever levels, for lack of a better term. Cred is always lacking a better term. Dude, This is the thing about making a consistent show. People pick up on your like specific idiosyncrasies and filler words and whatever else. Like yours is honestly, apparently, because you're such a dishonest man that you need to tell everyone the few rare instances where you're being honest. And mine is at face value and lacking better terms, which is actually quite fucking funny. Any comment there before we talk about ETH?
I think I've been getting much better on the honesty front.
You have. I haven't. I've been getting worse.
Like I've been really, really hard at work. It's been breaking my brain because I catch myself being like trying to I want to start a sentence. I'm like no, and stop myself again.
Don't be honest, Don.
No, I will not be honest on this channel anymore. But it's quite interesting, yeah, because you would never notice this in normal conversations, but everyone has this. Everyone says something too much, and then they're like, if you are kind of like alerted to it, it's so weird. Like you start picking up on it yourself, and you're like, oh, okay, this.
It feels so personal, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
And also, of all people, English being my second language, I am allowed not to have a better term because my vocabulary is limited. Like you have to afford me that much. It's like, why would you pick on someone for whom English is their second language? It just seems a bit cruel and xenophobic and racist, all this other stuff.
True. It's the same for me, actually.
Yeah, disgusting. All of you in the comments bringing this stuff up, go look in the mirror and feel ashamed. Speaking of ashamed, ETH BTC Weekly, it just broke down and didn't do anything. That's it, right? I don't like if you and I were speaking in Discord DMs, which we would do if we were friends and not business partners, but we don't. But theoretically, I'm going to ask you to use your imagination. If we just kind of chatted and spoke about markets and so on and so forth, we wouldn't even bring this pair up, right? Because it just hasn't done anything. It broke down and that's it. There's no reclaim at 6.6. It didn't break down properly to ledger status puke levels at 5.5. And then that's it. That's all she wrote. And I think that's quite telling because there is sort of Shanghai, whatever, unlock narrative still hiding in the periphery. But this is such a Bitcoin-centric move and Bitcoin-centric narrative that both ETH and altcoins have almost been irrelevant, apart from like the new listing pump or Don manipulating XRP. That's a joke for Mr. Regulator. But aside from that, it really hasn't. It's been a Bitcoin story, and that still seems to be likely until at least the next sort of consolidation post-volatility. So what do you think of ETH? What do you think of alts? We're going to talk about ETH USD, but it's going to take 2 minutes because fuck that chart, frankly.
Yeah. No, I think above 0.066 starts looking really good. At 0.055 starts looking really good. Those are the two levels where you want to trade. Anything in between, like if you want to short it down to 0.055, I don't think you're going to have fun. If you want to long it right here, I don't think you're going to have fun. There's not really anything to do, in my opinion. Like it's just shit. It looks so much better, higher or lower. And it'll be a clean chart at that point. And honestly, fuck. And honestly, I mean, it's just
what
not
did you do? What
interesting.
happened?
No, I said honestly, and I was like,
oh, fuck. I didn't even notice. Oh, cool.
I even said it twice.
Wow.
But
shows
yeah,
how much attention I'm paying. When is it my turn to talk? Sorry, yes, go on.
So I think higher just it makes sense to just wait those 5 to 10% out because I think you're gonna get a 50% move on ETH BTC the moment you get any strength. It's just I'm down to buy it low. I'm down to buy it strong. I'm not down to buy it anywhere in the middle. Just like fuck that noise.
Yeah, don't diddle in the middle. Speaking of noise, let's go talk about ETH USD. I don't really know what to say necessarily.
I mean, the weekly, you can argue with the weekly because it's just walking up, right?
You're looking at the
slowly.
1760 level, that weekly close.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's been holding.
That's
it's
decent.
It's also held the 1.6880 level, like basically the top of the consolidation. It's walking up. It's walking up slowly. I actually kind of like that because when it just kind of goes like sideways, if you just look to the left on kind of like September of 2020. like when it starts walking up like to the right like that slowly, you usually get really good trends out of it. Obviously, if this breaks down, it's going to be horrendous. It starts looking like real shit. I think 1.5k, if that breaks, we have big troubles in ETH, which makes trading this thing quite nice, right? 1.5k breaks, we have big problems. Until that happens, you just assume that ETH is going to walk up slowly until it pops. I think that's kind of the setup that we have here on the weekly time frame. It's basically a walk up until pop, and then you either fade the pop if you want to be bearish, or you're euphoric.
In which case, you should fade it as well.
Yeah. I think that would lead you to 2.5k, and 2.5k is a really good level to sell. So, yeah, I like it. I don't like the chart because the chart, like the support and resistance levels and everything, is kind of messed up. But at least the invalidation is quite clear, close below 1.5, and I'm gonna sell my ETH because I still have some. Until that happens, I'm targeting 2.5, and it's pretty straightforward like that.
Yeah, that's understandable. We didn't talk about the monthly ETH though.
Yeah.
Do you still put any weight? Because for a while it did its job, the 1678 level or something.
Yes.
Yeah, 1678. It's very sad that I remember that. Nonetheless,
Yeah.
that was doing its job for a while, and then I mean, this would technically be a breakout on the monthly, right?
Yep.
Similar to BTC. And then if you apply the same logic, and as far as candle body goes, you get 2200 as a monthly level with maybe a wick to 2500 if it hits your weekly. Do you think that sort of that logic is transferable to ETH, basically directly from Bitcoin? That, hey, look, monthly breakout, this is the next candle body. Stop looking at the 5 minute.
Yes, pretty much. I think that's a good way to say it. And just if we close the monthly strong like this, if you get a pullback to the 16.86 level, seems like a decent buy to me. It's like ETH can retest its level. Bitcoin should not. I think that's kind of like just looking at the structure of this whole thing. Like ETH has the luxury of being able to retest it.
Yeah. Didn't break that far away in the first place, right? That's
exactly.
I mean, that daily chart is still sad though, man. I mean, come on.
Oh yeah, horrendous.
What is going on?
Horrendous.
Yeah.
But I think like at some point you don't want to fade 1.8k anymore, right? Like it's been technically we've tested it 8 times.
It's getting stronger with every touch. TA is wrong.
Maybe that's how it's gonna play out. I don't know. I just like the Bitcoin charts way too much to kind of get caught up trading anything other than maybe the weekly. That's the reason why I still have ETH, because I mean, that just looks like a walk up to me, which is not bad.
8th test, best test on, as all the textbooks say, for this 4-hour range. But yeah, please get me some better ETH levels on the USD pair, even on the lower time frames. I mean, look, it's a nice range bound type of thing, but looking at the daily, it's a bit of a disaster as far as, the market's bullish and trend forming conditions and so on and so forth. It's just been stuck. So that would be nice. But I agree, like you don't, like with Bitcoin looking like it does and the levels that it's offering and so on and so forth, you're going to have to give me a very compelling and with ETH BTC breaking down, you're going to have to give me a very good argument to care about ETH given all its deficiencies.
Yep. And the good argument is basically ETH BTC crossing back over 0.066.
And that would make a breakout likely through 1800, and you can start to piece together something a bit more compelling. Awesome. Now on the altcoin front, let's talk about Litecoin and XRP because it's 2017 apparently.
It's quite funny because I mean everyone is making fun of me for buying those two shits.
As they should.
Fair enough. But they've been also almost the best performers in the last few weeks. So
that's true.
It's been quite good.
Yeah, Litecoin up 0.02% today. I mean,
no.
XRP 0.13.
Oh yeah, but XRP went up like I mean XRP made me quite happy just because I bought it as like a trade, not like okay, I'm gonna hold this for a while. I was like, I'm gonna buy this because I think it has a lot of relative strength. And then 20 days later, I was up 50% while Bitcoin didn't do anything basically. That's quite nice. Like, I mean, Bitcoin obviously went up as well, but not even close to what XRP did. So quite happy on
For
that
now.
front. I mean, yeah, I sold my XRP. I don't know if you saw the tweet, but basically,
I mean, I've got
like
you muted, mate, so you're going to have to read them all out to me.
but yeah, I bought XRP at 0.37,
Yeah.
tweeted about it, and then kind of sold it. If you go on XRP USD on the weekly time frame,
Yes.
there's a pretty obvious shelf at 0.6.
Yes.
And I basically, the moment we got close there and at the low time frames, if you look at the 4 hour, the 1 hour, that got very vertical. And I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna see if someone fills me out of my position. And someone was very kind and basically let me exit very, very high up into 0.57-ish.
5.7, yeah.
And I think now for XRP, right, I had this, it had this massive Bitcoin run, basically where against Bitcoin, it appreciated from the bottom to the top by 58%, right, which is massive in this kind of Bitcoin-centric trading environment. I think we could go back to it bleeding out again on the Bitcoin front if Bitcoin actually breaks out here, which I'm hoping for. That's why I was like, okay, I'm just going to sell my XRP, kind of put that back into Bitcoin, and then rotate from Bitcoin back into XRP at a later date.
You go from the true store of value to rotating between stores of value at this point. I'm also fucking surprised you sold resistance for once in your life. You know, that's pretty
I've
impressive.
learned from my mistakes.
Yeah, I was expecting to ask like, hey, what do you think of 60? That's a massive level. Like, no, 80. I'm like, fuck, this show is hard to make, you know?
I mean, I think it's gonna go to 80. It's just, I was like, my money is, and this is something that I've learned in the last few weeks, that it's not that fun to hold something that goes up even like, but goes up less than Bitcoin. And so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna, especially given that, I mean, to be quite frank, like I just have a shitload of exposure basically to the market.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'd like to take some profits, and I don't want to take profit on Bitcoin because that just looks to me like it could go to like an all-time high even if it wanted to. So I'm happy to take like profits here and there because that basically, like if I get like these 50% moves and I get them right, that makes my risk tolerance on everything else so much better, right? Because I'm like, okay, it's easier to hold. If like Bitcoin at 30K, if I sold XRP for a 50% move as a trade, because I'm like, okay, this kind of bull move that we had from 16K to 30K on Bitcoin, if that like goes back to 24, I'm gonna give back quite a few before I'm invalidated, but I've made so much more in this bull environment than that I'm gonna give back. It makes it easier to hold. I don't know if I'm the only one like that. I don't know if it's the best kind of way to think about it, but it's been making holding for me easier. So it's quite nice. I'm not hating on it.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It does remind me, just as a complete tangent, someone tagged us, someone was kind enough to tag sort of you and I and Technical Roundup in a Twitter post. And I thought, oh, that's nice, someone sharing our content, because Lord knows we do a terrible job of it, right? But then the comment that followed was, Don, shit analyst, great trader, Cred, great analyst, shit trader. And I was like, oh my
Jesus.
Jeez.
What is that?
I mean, first of all, it's a violation. Second of all, I mean, decent kernel of truth there, right? It's like it's not fully fiction. Like I'm not going to disagree with that in its entirety. Like I've got enough self-awareness to recognize parts of that aren't complete nonsense.
I mean, I don't know where I'm a shit analyst, but I'll try. I mean, maybe. Honestly, maybe.
I don't think it's the shit analyst stuff. I think it's because for the high conviction swing stuff, your gut like overrides a lot of technical things, and you'll have a feeling about the market, and then TA comes secondary, and so you kind of develop a lot of plans on the fly where you might not have a level 1 week, and the next week you're like, oh, you know what, actually it's looking better than I thought it would. So I think that's what makes it harder to follow, because at times, and especially at inflection points, like the reasoning isn't fixed. Well, I mean, for a trader, obviously shouldn't be, but even in terms of just like levels and what matters and what you think of the market, there's a sort of non-linearity there that becomes quite hard to follow, especially because it's not strictly quantified or obvious, and a lot of it is just kind of like, oh well, this is what I think of the market, as opposed to well, this level held, this closed, etc.
Actually, very fair. Yeah.
And for mine, it's entirely fucking self-evident, so I'm not even going to give it an explanation.
Stop beating yourself up.
Cool. Any other alts you think are... I mean, dude, there's a reason I skipped Altcoin Thursdays. Because I was like, what the fuck do you want me to say? I'm not going to like insult your intelligence by drawing 1 hour ranges on all of these things and saying if it breaks below and accepts, short it. If it breaks below and doesn't accept, long it. If it goes to the mid, wait for the flip. And, all that type of stuff. I'm like, no one has time for that. It's like...
I mean, why are you making stuff up? I mean, it's just the 10,000 that I wired you to strip it so that my longs stay in profit. But no, I mean, I totally agree. We talked about it briefly yesterday, and I was like, I don't even know, like, we don't even have enough to talk about in the newsletter with regards to altcoins. Because, I mean, there's like once in a blue moon, there's a trade opportunity, like XRP, for example, but it's not necessarily one that you can even talk about, right? Because it's quite hard to kind of, like, my XRP thesis was basically like, I saw big buying going on into Bitcoin crash. And I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is going to go up, especially with the SEC backdrop that it has. So people are going to speculate on them winning the case, the SEC case that they have going on. They don't even need to have anything good going. The moment this bounces, people are going to speculate that they have something going, that it's insider trading, because XRP kind of has a reputation for that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take advantage
allegedly
of this.
in Minecraft, yeah.
Allegedly, yes. But that's like, someone hears this and they're like, this guy's on crack. Like, what is this? What kind of thesis is that? And I mean, I agree. That's kind of my trading in general. Like, it's 50 IQ enough to make me money. So yeah, I don't know. Like, it's pretty hard right now, and you kind of have to really fish and kind of think outside reason, basically, because I mean, nothing makes sense.
And even just rotationally, I'm literally clicking through the weekly charts as you're speaking. I mean, you've got BTC breaking out of like a 6 to 8 month consolidation with a strong narrative, and then most of these alts are like chop. Either downtrend or chop, or haven't broken out, or bounced really hard in the context of a larger downtrending structure. There's even just opportunity cost-wise, I'm not really seeing it,
Nope. Me neither.
So hopefully you'll forgive us for skipping Altcoin Thursdays. And also, yes, DonAlt's bribe to tell me not to do the show for the sake of the industry definitely played a part. And I think we've spoken at length about what would make altcoins attractive, right?
Yes. I think in general, like, Bitcoin kind of has to stop.
Yes.
And I don't want Bitcoin to stop. I like it when it does this. The thing is, the higher Bitcoin goes, right, the bigger the pain for altcoin holders will be.
Right.
And that pain can be quite intense. Like, let's say Bitcoin goes from 30K to 50K in like a week or two. There's a chance that your altcoin is still going to sit at the same USD price, right? And then seeing that, even though you're not taking any heat from the market, because it's very rare that you start losing USD value when Bitcoin goes down. But seeing that is going to inflict massive pain, especially if you're all in altcoins, which is going to, even if people are saying, no, I'm never going to sell my altcoin, it's going to make you sell eventually if you take enough heat. We've seen it in 2017, 18. We've seen it in a lot of market cycles. People start being very willing to sell if everything goes up but their thing. And then usually it goes, right?
It's just another form of FOMO, right?
Yeah, it's the worst, I think.
It's the worst, yeah.
Because you can sit through pain and you can convince yourself that once your time has come, you're going to make it big. But then you see other people have the time of their life in the same market as you have.
In a safer
trade.
Like,
and then it's like, am I actually wrong, right? Because like, you can argue, hey, I'm not wrong. The market is just shit right now when everything goes down together, right? But it's when you're sitting there and everything goes up but you're shit, where you're actually going to be tested. And a lot of people fail that test. And oftentimes it's actually good if they fail the test because they actually hold dog shit. But I think that's like, the higher Bitcoin goes, the better for altcoins in the long run, because you're going to get a massive rotation back into them. It's just the pain that comes along there is quite hard. So holding a bunch of Bitcoin always good. That kind of keeps you from making that dumb decision, because if your altcoin doesn't do anything, for example, my Litecoin position, feels like it's been at $90 for the last fucking 5 years, but I don't care, right? I'm making money on Bitcoin, and I know like that we have the halving coming on Litecoin, so I don't really care too much. Like if this can do whatever it wants to, I'm still gonna make money in the market.
I mean, you
And
survived the
then-
dip to 65, so you're probably immune to everything else at this point.
yes. Yeah, I mean, it just barely actually stayed in my invalidation. It closed
Yeah.
above on the weekly at 77.
Got
which made
rescued.
this-
So many systems got rescued by that weekly close, it feels like.
Oh yeah, it was quite intense.
Yeah, it was
and I
close.
think like if I look at some of the altcoin pairs, especially like for example the ones that I have, Litecoin, like you look at the weekly on Litecoin USD, that looks so good, right? That looks incredibly good. It basically had a retest,
Lower high.
very deep. I mean, you could argue it, but I mean, to me, this just looks very strong. Like you had a very deep retest, you had a massive bounce out of it. And I think that's going to push higher above 100 eventually. It's just when is that going to happen? Is Bitcoin going to trade at 30K? Is Bitcoin going to trade at 40K? I don't know. Like maybe Bitcoin's going to trade at 40K and Litecoin's still going to be at 100. And that's something that I'm willing to hold through, but I know a lot of people won't. And if they capitulate, I'm going to rotate more into altcoins because I think at that point they're going to be good value. Right now, I mean, I don't really see it, especially on the Litecoin Bitcoin pair, for example, or on all the Bitcoin pairs.
Yes.
It's such a struggle to find a good bullish setup.
Yeah, if you think the USD pairs look rough, don't look at the BTC pairs.
Yeah. I mean, you have a massive green weekly on Bitcoin, and you have like a tiny red candle on your favorite altcoins on the USD pair. That's not fun.
No.
So I don't want to buy more on the altcoin fronts now, but I will rotate a lot of my Bitcoin into altcoins down the line.
Yeah, it seems like the first reasonable place where that becomes reasonable. Well, the first place where that becomes reasonable is like on the 30K reclaim / breakout, and then a consolidation afterwards, I think. Yeah. Because if it really starts to dip and it starts to set off those red flags you and I spoke about when it comes to Bitcoin rolling over, I don't think you want to be in altcoins. At least that's far less compelling to me. But on the strength side, until, as you said, Bitcoin slows down, cools off, or just kind of the volatility really falls off, and the momentum settles above a key level, because you could argue the momentum's already settled, right? We had an impulse candle and 2 weeks of consolidation, but I mean settles above like an important resistance level. I think that's when you might see a more favorable window for altcoin rotations, right? Like let's say it breaks above 30K, closes there, and then like pulls back a little, goes sideways. I think that would be really good for altcoins if we get it. But this sort of high 20s and alt struggling as is, why force the issue? Especially like why force the issue if you're going to underperform while you're at it, you know? I mean, if you want to trade linear futures on altcoins and kind of punt it on the hourly, 4 hour and take setups there, I think that's fine. But in terms of like, given this is a weekly show and just kind of how we approach things from a portfolio allocation point of view, I still didn't see a super compelling argument yet. So remains to be seen.
XRP proves that things can change quickly, right?
Yes.
Just looking at that daily chart where we just went, like, it's insane, like 60% gain against Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Like that's like insane. That's going to make you a lot of money.
It's also the outlier, right?
Yes, but it's like, this is exactly what I wanted to say. Like, it's an outlier. And this is not going to be an outlier forever unless this is just the market top. Like, I don't think, like, if Bitcoin tops here at 30K and starts heading down, I don't think you're going to get an altcoin season. I don't think you're going to get much of like positive price action at all, because it hasn't kind of gotten the eyes back on it, right? Like Bitcoin at 30K, just no one really cares about Bitcoin right now. I haven't really seen it anywhere. I think Bitcoin at 30, maybe 40K, at that point you start having eyes on again, and then you can have nice rotations into altcoins. I think the attention just isn't there yet, especially given people just got so wrecked on Dogecoin by like Elon Musk shilling it, and like everyone was kind of into altcoins. I mean, Dogecoin is down 90% against the USD at this point in time, right now. That's brutal, right? And those kind of people, like, they're not necessarily ready to jump back in. They're gonna be ready to jump in when like stuff has 2x or 3x. Sure. They might still take a 5x or a 10x, but they're gonna give it back again, as always.
Thanks for playing. Yes. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I think you're right on that point, but maybe they watch Technical Roundup and learn something. So
Maybe.
or not. Let's be real. 50k. Speaking of resistance levels, 50k is the strongest one on the chart. Don, I don't care about 30k BTC. 50k subscribers on this channel is the real wall of worry for us to climb over. So if you enjoy these videos, episodes, bits of content, leave us a like, leave us a subscription. Let's break resistance and not make it a deviation, because that would be super sad. Can you imagine?
Oh yeah, I mean, losing subscribers on YouTube. Whew.
Oh man, yeah, that's rough. Let's hope we don't have to go there. Should we gloss over some news? I mean, we've got a bit of catching up to do, to be fair, on the news front, but I'm pretty sure we can. Yeah, I've tried to curate it reasonably, and I'm going to annoy absolutely everyone by opening the tabs one at a time. So, here we go.
Oh, there's been so many comments.
Here's the Cred touchpad experience. Yeah.
Oh yeah, people like ah.
I know, so angry. It's like light mode and learn to use your tabs properly. It's like no and no.
Like, it's 50% of the comments. It makes me happy every time.
Does it honestly make you happy, Don? Or you just
being a minor inconvenience to people, it's kind of like a nice thing. It's a little bit of joy in my life.
Well, you're good at that, that's for sure. You've been actually, I think I've got one of your tweets in the in the news reel. What was it? Oh no, well, we discussed it. I basically brought up the tweet where you said, high time frames look good, low time frames look meh, considering Binance is buying a bunch of them, we're still droopy. Hope that's caused by option expiry, which you're an expert on, obviously. Vanna, Charm, flows, OPEX, quad witching. I mean, this is your bread and butter. But just to not... just to keep the show intelligible, we're not going to go there and probe your expertise. Invalidation... We want to stay relatable, right? It's like we only use half our brain on this show or whatever. Invalidation for shorter-term entries are still new lows below Binance news for me, so until then we chill. So we basically covered that. But I just saw you kind of fudding in some comments, being like, oh, well, you know, PA has been a bit dodgy. You're replying to Loma as well, saying it's slowing down. So I just wanted to flag that up, but we've covered it.
I think we were like this morning, like we got really, really close to invalidation, which...
Yeah, when I bought the bottom and paper handed, yes. You're welcome.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, that's Chad. Like,
I saved
that
the
was
market.
really... I think that was a really good entry because it was so close to invalidation, but it takes some balls because if it got invalidated, I think we would have taken like a 2,000 candle to the face.
Nice thing. Well, I wasn't thinking of that, but good to know.
I mean, I took it too, but I was like this is a rough one. So,
I love those though.
Yeah, I mean, when it feels like shit and you're like, but it's technically as close as I can get, that's usually really good trades. Like for me, at least.
Yeah.
Like
same.
every time I'm like sitting there sweating while pressing the button, but my brain is like, this is just really good. Like from an entry perspective, it almost always works out.
It's like the old cliche, right? If you're buying support on the lower time frames at the extremity, you want it to look awful, and if you're selling resistance on the low time frames at the extremity, you want it to look amazing.
Yep, exactly.
That's entry triggers 101. Thanks for watching. But we covered that. As far as our friends from the block go, and congratulations to Larry Cermak for becoming the CEO of the block. Don't know if you saw that news. They fired a third of their staff, which is a bit unfortunate, but you know, recession, macro.
They have to pay him a salary, yeah?
They have to, yeah. And they got Yevgeny from Wintermute on the board of directors as well. So I'm waiting for my invitation to be the second one, given how familiar we are with the block after all these Casual Friday episodes.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Larry give out like a free pro subscription. I was like, why did I not get one?
I know. We're the biggest block shills ever.
Yeah, I don't understand.
Well,
and I couldn't... I mean, I went on his tweet and I was like, "Congrats, King" or something.
Oh,
so
wow.
I deserve it.
So you
more
even
than
sucked
anyone
up
else.
to him and still didn't get it. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, we have beef with the block now, so CoinDesk next week, Don. I guess.
All my homies hate block now.
We're so entitled. It's terrible.
It's bad.
Conservatives slam Republican for work with Elizabeth Warren on crypto. So there was someone on the other side of the aisle working with her on a bill, I believe it was, in digital asset legislation. And it's just, I think Elizabeth Warren in particular is getting a lot of attention because I think one of her campaign ads said, I'm raising an anti-crypto army. And she's spoken about Bitcoin in the past and the energy cost. And she made a really spurious argument about how the recent regional banking and Silicon Valley bank run was somehow caused to or sort of very closely related to crypto, which is not just not based on evidence, but more or less fiction, I think, if you're taking the causal, if you're looking at causality with any seriousness. So, yeah, she keeps getting ratioed on Twitter, which is fun.
Yes.
But yeah, it just seems like this regulatory environment is heating up again, and with elections coming up, I'm sure this will be a topic. It's not, Coinbase's head of legal was tweeting long threads about talent leaving the US, something we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, and their whole deal with the SEC, getting a Wells notice and saying, well, it's impossible to comply. It just continues to be a massive clusterfuck. I'm not even sure what level of meaningful analysis we can offer week on week. Like, oh, this Wells notice and this means that. I mean, look, it's more or less the same thing, that the US is very hostile to crypto, and there seems to be no bipartisan, reasonable legislation to regulate the space and make it attractive for talent to stay. And that gap continues to be filled by offshore exchanges with far less transparency, and or the talent simply leaving elsewhere. And I think we could basically come on the show and summarize it that way for months and almost years to come, until something material changes. And that's kind of the sad state of it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, American politics has been a little bit embarrassing in the crypto, like in the crypto commentary at least. Like it's so much. You'd either say like it's just complete and utter incompetence, or you kind of say it's nefarious, right? I don't know. Like, I mean, it's just some of these arguments that are raised are just so stupid, right? You could do a million things with crypto, and you could kind of put it on like you could put it on blast for a million things, right? But every time they come out, they do like this most stupid shit, where you're like, it's just plain wrong, right? So I just kind of frustrating, because I actually wouldn't really mind if like the politicians came out were like, hey, we need to regulate crypto in a way that these rampant scams that go on every time this goes up a little bit stop, or at least get like a little bit reined in. But no, instead they're like, oh, global warming, crypto is causing global warming, and crypto somehow causes the banks to collapse. Like if that's really true, right? Like if the banks can collapse because of crypto, then you have bigger problems in crypto, right? Like crypto is so fucking tiny. I just don't see.
It says more about the banks than about crypto.
Yes, exactly.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, in which world is this accurate, right?
Yeah.
It's just not. Like this is a tiny market still, and basically what you're doing is you're pushing out like very, very bright minds. And I mean, crypto doesn't have to lead to anything, right? Let's be real. Like this could still fail in general, I think. But if you're pushing out like talented, bright minds, especially now in these times, right, where you get AI coming up and just kind of like taking jobs left and right, and you kind of get potential. I mean, if you want to lose these people, fine by me, right? I'm not an American. But you kind of have a big brain drain going on in that regard. And if this leads to anything, this crypto revolution, right, you're not going to have it in the US. Yeah,
what a waste other countries, that would
be. Yeah, and I mean, other countries will take advantage of it. And basically all this has led to so far has, like, scammers have had an easier time, right? Because the people in the US that actually want to follow the law have been kind of like pushed out.
They can't, right?
And they cannot, and they cannot scale the businesses either, because like the banking access gets taken away, like a million things that makes it so much harder to run something legit in the US over just like going into a shithole country, starting something that is completely legitimate, that just kind of steals from the customers.
Did you just use the term shithole country?
I mean, it's like,
economically developing nation, perhaps.
I mean, I'm not talking about it like one in particular, right? But there's like a few countries that is just like very happy to accept any scam.
Sure.
And that's kind of where they're pushing the US citizens to, right? Because I mean, people want to speculate on crypto, people want to use crypto. Why not make it so that they can actually do it safely, instead of pushing all of it out and being like, okay, it's not our problem anymore. It's stupid. It's frustrating. Every time I hear it, I'm just like, this is just, I mean, it's America making, and it's America kind of shooting itself in the foot. And it's not just a Democratic kind of problem, right? Like it's not the Democrats that do this, it's like both parts, like both sides of the aisle. Good part about all of this, to end my rant, is that now that the Democrats have kind of chosen their stance and pretty aggressively, I'm like 99% sure that the Republicans are going to come out and be like, oh, crypto's the best thing ever, which is quite fun, because now we actually are going to have like political kind of tailwind in a sense that we never really had, right? Because it wasn't really a topic that got big. And now that the Democrats are like, fuck crypto, I think that the Republicans are gonna come out and be like, yeah, crypto's the coolest thing
Yeah, it's
ever.
like a straightforward battleground now, right? Like
Yeah,
ideologically.
which is fair enough, right? When we like, I think that's a better situation than kind of get like a hit by the SEC that kind of goes rogue on us, while
Sure.
both sides of the aisle don't really give a shit. Now we have the SEC attacking us, but we also have the Democrats attacking us, which leads to at least the Republicans going to defend us,
Which is also sad politically,
oh,
because you
it's
can infer
embarrassing.
the
Yeah,
position, the likely position of a Republican, not based on their own principles on this occasion, but simply as a counter signal to what the Democrats are doing. So it's like,
Yep.
if these are your beliefs, mine are those, just the opposite, which is
Yeah,
not polarizing whatsoever.
Yep.
But yeah, listen, at this point for me, there's just no evidence that there's any good faith effort to regulate crypto, and it just seems like they want it gone. And both from a regulatory agency point of view and politically, they're not engaging with businesses in a transparent and, again, good faith type of way. And I'm the kind of person where if good faith goes out the window, I just kind of switch off, I guess, mentally.
Yep.
And just stop listening to whatever you're saying, and stop caring, basically. If you don't have that, you don't have anything.
Yep.
And I think you mentioned the sort of dynamic where, is it just a coincidence, or is it incompetence, or is it deliberate? I think with every consecutive instance which appears to be incompetent, cumulatively they have to lead more towards it being deliberate, right? Like
Yeah.
you can't have like one coincidence, 2, 3, 4, 5, like in a series, and cumulatively they have to, they would suggest something a bit more nefarious, and I think the evidence for that is mounting at this point. So yeah, fuck that.
Yep.
This is a funny one. Crypto's terrible risk management has been washed away, according to Galaxy Digital CEO Novogratz. As a reminder to our audience, that is the gentleman with the large lunar tattoo on his arm. It's like, have you been washed away? So I mean, is that what we're left to infer here? So yeah, Galaxy Digital CEO Mike Novogratz believes most bad actors and terrible risk management practices in crypto have been swept away. And then this is after announcing, company disclosed a 1 billion net loss in 2022 and said that it expected to turn a profit in the first quarter of the year, so on and so forth. I mean, look, I have two things to say on this. The first one is that I guess swept away is very kind of charitable language, because they blew up and they blew up the industry with them. It's not like the market kind of arbed them out, or it was like a I don't know, like a convenient and orderly changing of hands when it comes to who's holding the coins, and the soft hands get washed out and accumulated by strong hands. This is just like mass fraud. Everyone blew up, huge contagion. Industry goes to zero on account of those big actors, So it's not like a calm and orderly process. And the second point, I personally don't think that that's a permanent feature, i.e. terrible risk management being washed away and like, that's it, we've dealt with it, it's not coming back. It's just a feature of crypto at this point. And I'm very cynical as far as people learning their lessons when it comes to crypto. So I think if prices go high enough and there's enough liquidity and macro is facilitative and we see risk on in any fashion that we've seen in previous bull markets, I wouldn't be surprised if we see very similar practices, just with different faces and different names. Is that too cynical?
No, I mean, it's just how crypto works. And I don't think that's going to change. It's also like, it's a tiny market, right? Like, it's a tiny market with a lot of upside potential. So you're going to see a bunch of people kind of just be like, okay, I'm just going to risk it all. I think you're going to see a little bit less of that the bigger the market becomes. And it's going to move away from like products that we love, like Bitcoin and ETH, and it's going to go into the shittiest of shit coins, basically, the bigger the market becomes. But I don't think we're even close to that yet. Like, if Bitcoin's trading at 100K, right, and has been trading around that level for like 5 years and just not done anything, which just, I mean, if you just look at the charts, right, the further this goes up, the lower kind of like the every single bull market top is, right? So percentage-wise, I mean, we had 20 in 2017. We topped at 20K. Now we topped at like 68, almost 70. And I think the next top is going to be like at 100, like 80, 90, 100K, maybe 110.
That's it. You've
And
called it. Set your limit orders, Don. I'm holding you to that.
And I think like that, it's gonna get slower and slower and slower, right? And it's gonna take more and more and more time. And at that point, we're gonna see less. Like it's gonna be more sophisticated, just by the market, just in general, getting more sophisticated. Everything moves slower, and you don't have kind of like the stupid. Okay, I'm gonna blow up if this moves down 50%, because I mean it's not gonna move down 50% at some point anymore. I think like those kind of days are gonna be behind us at some point.
Well, the thing is, wasn't 2022 the count? I mean, wouldn't that be the perfect year for that counter argument? When you have like lending markets and good OTC infrastructure and so-called institutional adoption and all, like basically 2017 cycle, like entirely retail driven, right? And then 2021 is where the so-called more serious players came in, and you had some products that weren't entirely retail oriented. Fidelity, CME. I mean, yeah, all these products suck and they're garbage, but it's better than nothing. MicroStrategy. So do you consider that as a counter argument? So, if you're positing that the serious boys means muted volatility, but at least in relative terms, we had a transition from retail to serious boys in 2021, 2022, and look what happened. They all died, and it was just as juvenile, if not worse, than just the retail punters.
I think it happens because they just didn't know what the fuck they were getting into, basically. I think it's basically Bitcoin, or like in general crypto, like kicking them into like kicking their teeth in, being basically like, well, you don't know what you got into. But with every cycle, they will know, right? Like if Bitcoin goes back to 60K, those people that got completely carried out, or in general, like the people that came in, like the institutions, so to say, they're going to have learned a lot during that time. And they're going to learn more during the next cycle until they're kind of up to speed with everything. And then I think it's going to be less. But you can...
I hope so, man.
I mean, we'll see. Honestly, like the volatility and all that stupidness is what gives us the good prices to buy and the good prices to sell, right?
Yes.
So at the end of the day, as a trader, it's not necessarily something that we should be cheering for anyway.
If you want to stay dumb, please do, basically.
Yes, exactly, because that's making trading so much easier for us. But as someone that wants to see like at least parts of this industry succeed, right? It would be kind of shame if we had this thing and we dedicated our lives to it for the last like 10 years, or like almost, and then have this thing just amount to nothing would be a little bit depressing. So on that side of things, I would like to see that come to fruition. But I think if we go up and keep going up, and then have like a long time of sideways, we're going to see more sophisticated actors kind of get more sophisticated in the market, because it takes some time to get sophisticated in something that you don't know, right? Because you could be like, hey, I mean, I'm accounting for 20%, like or 10% swing in a day. That's massive. And then you're trading Bitcoin, and Bitcoin goes up and down 20% in a day all the time, right? Like the S&P usually doesn't. And I think that's just stuff that you have to learn. And then at some point you get it, and then it's going to get less and less so. But we'll see.
We'll see.
I'm not an expert on that front.
No, of course. If anything, I'm just a cynical version of you, where I'm like, no one learns anything. Everyone comes in and gambles. Even if they're initially responsible, they get greedy and then they get carried out, But we'll see. Also
very possible. I mean, honestly, it's crypto. Everything could happen. But I think we're getting there. It feels much more serious right now at 30K than it felt like 2 years ago at 60K.
Yes, I think that's fair. Can't wait for the 69K triple top, Don. That's gonna be one for the history books. SEC Chair Gensler: existing rules regulate crypto. Legislation unnecessary. I mean, that just seems wrong. I mean, if you have major US businesses with millions, billions, trillions in revenue, and they are all unequivocally saying that it's impossible to compete and comply with regulation in the US, how can you, in good faith, make the statement that existing rules regulate crypto and legislation is unnecessary? Those two things, to me, are so insanely incompatible that I would much rather not trust, but believe the argument of the business owners who have capital at risk and want to make it work versus the regulator, sure, but really de facto politician trying to protect his career and the scope of his regulatory agency's oversight. I mean, look, or even you could reverse engineer the premise and ask if the existing rules were enough and legislation were unnecessary, would you expect every single major crypto business in the US to say that the regulation is insufficient? It's like it's impossible to square those two. And so again, this just seems like a dishonest, bad faith, self-serving, self-indulgent way of preserving the agency's power and a broad mandate to apply existing securities frameworks, as opposed to getting something that's actually fit for purpose. Because again, I think it's manifestly true that it's not fit for purpose if every single US business is saying it isn't. I'm inclined to believe them, you know?
I mean, there's so much, like, so many companies are moving out, right? And it costs a lot of money to move like your business. And it's obviously like they have a lot of invested. I mean, you see, I think Gemini is thinking about like offering like an offshore like derivatives platform or something. I don't remember which company it was.
It was Coinbase perps. Yeah.
Coinbase perps. Yeah, I mean, there you go, right? Like they're going offshore to kind of offer something that you could have in the US. You could make money with this. Like, I mean, this is like just wasted opportunity. And it's not the only one, right? And I think a lot of companies would actually set up shop in the US, but they're going to like Dubai or whatever. I mean, Dubai has been like one big hub, but there's many, many more where it's just like, if you want to start something in crypto, it's almost everyone agrees that, I mean, why would you start it in America?
Yes.
Makes no sense. Like
it's
you
like
just
North Korea, Iran, Iraq, you know, all the Syria, all the sanctioned places. Then it's like New York as well, and then US in general. It's a bit. I mean, what more do you need at that point? Yeah. So again, same old on the regulatory stuff.
Yep.
Do Kwon to face Montenegro justice first as US and Korea vie for extradition. Part of this is sort of deeply cathartic and satisfying because he just kept gaslighting people until the very last second and keeping up his hubris and fake confidence and saying, well, there are no investigations going on, we're complying with authorities, there are no orders for my arrest, etc. I didn't do anything wrong, I'm coding nowadays and working on this, that, and the other. You know, his hubris was his downfall, but the fact that the entire terror ecosystem blowing up wasn't enough to correct his attitude. And if anything, kind of emboldened him to continue to be such an egregious narcissist and so detached from reality that even after that, you know, you had 2 top 10 market cap coins disappear in like a day, basically, you know, and then and that was kind of one of the early dominoes that led to last year, essentially. And then he was just tweeting like nothing happened and claiming that there's no investigation, everything is fine, or any charges that do exist are politically motivating, just like lying through his teeth until the last second. So sympathy isn't particularly high on my order of emotions reading this headline.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people on Twitter be like, oh, technically he didn't do anything wrong because he just like tried something and it didn't work. And I mean, I would agree, like, I mean, if that was the case, I'd be like, okay, fair enough, right? You try something, it doesn't work. But it's not really true, is it? Like, he basically did a bunch of very, very legal things, lied through his teeth the entire way through. And in general, like, the reason why people make fun of him, I think, is because he just acted like a douchebag, right? Like, if you act with humility and you do your thing and it fails, and this should be a lesson to everyone, I mean, like, do your thing, do it with humility, and then if you fail, people are going to be much more likely to be like, okay, well, shit happens, right? But he was just an asshole, like, the entire way through.
Yes.
And
even after
kind of try to keep the charade going too, right? Like the absolute audacity to start like a Luna 2.0. It's just, I mean, it's mind-boggling to me. It's completely mind-boggling to me. So I'm not really on board with that. I'm like, give him the justice that he deserves. I would like to kind of get him tried for something that actually makes sense, right? Like all the lying, basically, and putting, like, just giving false pretense for a lot of things instead of just being like, oh yeah, he had like a massive Ponzi collapse, which is also fair enough, but I think that'd be a better kind of angle. But who knows? I will see how that goes. But I'm not sad for him at all. I dislike the guy from the moment he started appearing on Twitter with his like your size is not size and like haha poor, like It's just it's so poor taste, especially if your money is basically from a bunch of investors that are going to lose everything in the long run, because it was a pretty clear Ponzi. I don't know. Just I'm quite happy he's gone, basically.
Yeah. I mean, look, even philosophically, I wouldn't have many objections to the argument that, you set up a project, then it got big, and then it failed. And that's just like classic capitalist risk taking or whatever. But there are a lot of details and events around the DPEG that still aren't entirely clear or transparent. And I think there's a decently high chance, if I had to guess, of procedural impropriety and malfeasance around that time. And allegations that he was taking a large number of funds, and just how the DPEG event was handled, that it's not entirely clear that it was just a simple sort of technological failure, So I don't think that simple argument of, oh, well, it was just a protocol that failed, I don't think that's necessarily true. But even if it were, just the attitude thing and the aftermath in itself was pretty inexcusable. So, yeah.
Yep.
And also, just on a completely random tangent, you saw the pictures of him being arrested, right?
Yep.
And the man clearly has been eating well. Like he looks fat. Like he's a fat dude. And it just brought, I lived a significant portion of my life overweight/obese. And it just reminded me that you could do anything, no matter how good or how bad. And when the people wanted to refer to you just very quickly, they would almost always say or mention that you were fat, right? So it's like, if you're trying to point someone out in a crowd, you say, oh, that fat guy. Or like, oh, do you know John? It's like, oh, is he the fat whatever? And then also you could fucking cure cancer. And it's like, oh, yeah, that fat motherfucker who cured cancer. Like, there's no way to get away from it. If you're fat, that thing fucking follows you around. I don't know why that was relevant. It's just one of those observations that came to mind for people of that body disposition, let's put it that way. Let me know in the comments if you agree that become that kind of, I don't know, just it's just so easy to attach to a person. And no matter how morally good or bad their acts are, if you want to refer to them, like, you're always going to fucking mention it. Maybe that's my childhood trauma speaking, Don. I don't know. I'm sure we'll hear in the comments. UK government cancels plan to launch NFT. The Royal Mint is rugging, Don.
Oh,
this is pretty embarrassing. But actually, it's fairly standard, right? Because we talked about Instagram axing their NFT plans and a bunch of other Web 2 businesses who basically caught onto the Web 3 bubble too early, or sorry, too late specifically, and then made all these plans for wallet, MetaMask, NFT integration. And then obviously when the market fucking dies and crypto is a massive Ponzi collapse type of thing, you just don't do it. So I think this is just another version of that. That if you're a Web 2 business that moves slowly and you caught onto Web 3 too late, that shit takes time to move through the system, if you will. And so we're seeing all these cancellations and businesses that just didn't even have a real strategy or plan. Like, the real ones are probably still building and working on their infrastructure now. But for the hype chasers, and I guess the Royal Mint is included in that, if you catch a fad too late, by the time you're actually ready to take advantage of it, it's over, basically. And we've seen a lot of that in the last 6 months, especially when it comes to Web3 NFT stuff.
Yeah, I can't wait to see them restart it, because I think the NFT thing is not over yet. I think it's going to get much, much bigger. So the moment that catches on again, you're going to see a bunch of companies that started something during the last bull and then canceled it during the bear, started again, basically.
The resurrection.
It's going to be quite funny.
It's a good take profit signal.
Oh, yeah, probably. I mean, not immediate. Like, this kind of stuff is always how it works, right? It's like people see their family and friends start talking about like altcoins or whatever, and they're like, I need to take profit, right? Like, now but that's actually the last part of the bull market where stuff like doubles, triples, quadruples. So you want to sell into them buying and then telling their friends, basically, usually anyway. But we'll
unfortunately,
see.
You're right. There's like a weird thing where, like, if people who have no exposure and hate the space call it a bubble, it's usually got like another 2x in it,
Yep.
But still worth being aware of. And also on that note, Disney nixes its metaverse team. So don't even need to elaborate on this article. It's more of the same stuff, right? Economic contraction, companies looking to cut the fat. there's no more precise definition of fat than Web3 FOMO chasing, whether that's NFT, metaverse, wallet, crypto, whatever. That's going to be the first to go if you're looking to save money. And so Instagram, Disney, even the Royal Mint, Don, even they weren't
we lost
safe.
a good one. Huh?
We lost the good ones. Bitslato, Beaksy. Did you see that? Fucking Beaksy. Oh my god.
Hilarious. I didn't even know that this still existed.
Yeah, that was a bit of a throwback, right? I think people forget that in 2017, a lot of people had BitConnect in their Twitter bio as a completely normal thing on crypto Twitter. But also, this is coming to you from a show that was sponsored by FTX. So hey ho, stones and glass houses. Am I right? I guess I killed you there. No worries.
No. I mean, I'm just like, there's nothing to say there.
What do I say? Yeah.
I mean, just the sad part about this whole story is, right, the only reason, because we had actually, like, just to give some background on this whole thing, for the people that are interested, probably no one, but still, we got offers that were quite a bit higher from other exchanges that are like popular on crypto Twitter to be like promoters in general, that were higher than the one that we got from FTX. But we're like, FTX is the most, it seems like the safest bet. Like we trade there, a lot of people trade there. It seems quite safe in comparison to these offshore garbage companies, basically. And then look where that got us. So nothing sacred in crypto, apparently.
Definitely not our judgment. Yeah.
Nope.
Good times. I mean, not good times, miserable times, but here we are. It is what it is.
Yep.
And we've kept going, for now. CFTC complaint against Binance seeks permanent trading and registration bans and other details. So this is what gave you your new invalidation, Don. This news of the CFTC suing Binance.
Yep.
A lot of the claims were from before 2020, when Binance became more stringent with their KYC. But some of them are also more recent, regarding allegedly CZ-controlled companies and trading desks and that type of stuff. But a large part of it was centered around, again, poor restrictions and KYC policies that meant that US traders were allegedly trading on the platform. But the number of claims made is quite quite large, because there's also a subsection here from the block that regulators aren't convinced that Binance US is separate from Binance. I mean, obviously they have the same name, but but you know what I mean. Like those types of distinctions have always been murky. Claims that they were trading against customers and there were these in-house accounts and all this other stuff. Obviously, Binance put out their own statement in relation to these charges that is also worth reading if you want a balanced perspective. He mentioned CZ a lot by name. I mean, obviously, because he's the CEO, but they sort of elevate him into a emperor type of position in their allegations that he was untouchable and so on and so forth. I guess if you wanted to look for some bullish news, the CFTC still seems to think that Litecoin, Bitcoin, ETH, etc. are commodities. So, back to the old regulatory discussion. SEC thinks everything is a security. CFTC doesn't. Who has jurisdiction? No one knows. But hey, apparently we don't need more legislation, right, Don? Because it's so clear and functional and operational. Now, the thing about this CFTC lawsuit is, I mean, we'll see how it resolves. This isn't like an immediate thing. There's almost certainly just going to be litigation on this matter. If you think back to the BitMEX precedent, the really scary stuff happens is if other 3-letter agencies or 4-letter agencies kind of tag on to the charges, and it's sort of a multi-agency investigation. Like you'll recall for BitMEX, they had the CFTC stuff, but then the DOJ came around and had the RICO and Bank Secrecy Act, etc. type of charges for Arthur specifically, and that's what, killed the exchange to a large extent, right? Yeah. So there are a large number of possible outcomes here, which is a super useful statement to say. But the best case scenario is it stays CFTC only and they litigate, and Binance's number of lawyers and all that type of stuff, it kind of just drags on. And again, best case ends with a slap on the wrist. The worst case is if this is just the first pin to drop as far as regulatory agencies, and there are more serious charges brought by, again, DOJ and so on and so forth. But definitely not great, especially because Binance is the monolith. Binance is crypto at this point, right? I don't know how you want to measure it, depending on spot, futures, just overall trading volume. It's number one by far. It's the de facto monopoly in the crypto space. So if there's any real serious crackdown or enforcement there, that's just not particularly good for our industry. I mean, liquidity functionally vanishes, and even marginal sort of decreases there would affect prices and just the industry as a whole. So that's not very good. What do you think of this? How serious is it? Do you think it's fair to make comparisons between this and BitMEX, which happened like right before the bull market kicked off and we went to infinity and shook it off? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's not good. But then again, it was a lot of the things that I saw in there were kind of rumored about anyway. Like, it's not like we didn't, like the crypto insiders, I mean, this was pretty known stuff, I would say. I mean, I had public beef with ZZ for years because it was like, this practice is just like the way they're kind of running it. I didn't like during 2017, 18, and parts of 19, where I was like, this is just complete garbage. This is not how you should be doing things. They've cleaned up the act a lot, right? Which is also shown in these documents, because they're basically all about the past, right? Like very, very far back. And I'd be very surprised if, like, nowadays Binance is very different from back in the day. So I just think it's probably gonna be that they have to pay a shitload of money, like quite a bit, to make this go away. But I think they're gonna be fine in the long run. But I could be wrong on that front. The BitMEX case, like you said, was the bottom last bull run.
Yes.
Before the mega send, so maybe that'll happen again. I think Binance is still a bit too big. Even back then, like, we had BitMEX and we had Binance, right, as the two big ones.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have only Binance, really. So
would you be that guy at Bear Stearns saying they're too big to fail in 07, 08? Fannie and Freddie are fine. Relax.
Totally okay. No, but I mean, it worries me a little bit.
Sure.
And this is why I'm basically like, with the invalidation being below Binance lows, I think if the people that shorted those kind of news get away with it, I think that's basically gonna be because those news are actually, like, it's not good.
Mm-hmm.
And it just casts, like, you have FTX fail, and then you have this kind of stuff come out about the biggest exchange, because kind of casts a shadow of doubt about any legitimacy in the space.
Especially when SBF was just finger pointing at Binance infinitely throughout the whole thing, which was a bit of an absurd exercise. Thank you, Dell Digital Delivery. I don't need my McAfee 12. Fuck off. Sorry. I mean, that almost certainly played a part, right? Not only because Binance was left as the only sort of monolith exchange, but also everyone was following everything SBF was saying, and it was such a high-profile case, and he was mentioning CZ by name and Binance by name in every single post, blaming them for it. That's going to attract some sort of scrutiny, especially for politicians who want low-hanging fruit and free points to blame something or look for the next one, you know? So we'll see how this goes. But then again,
it's not like Binance doesn't deserve this. In my opinion, anyway. Like, there was a lot of shady things going on in the past. I'm not saying it's still happening, because I mean, I just have no idea, but I know that, like, I mean, just looking at how they operated during how they got their market share, right? They were basically just like, I mean, Bittrex was like, oh, we have too many customers. We cannot do the KYC anymore. We cannot, like, with all these coins, it's too much. And then Binance just like, oh, come to us, fuck it. You deposit, we list anything. Like, they basically were like, okay, they kickstarted their exchange with, by being the exchange that didn't really give a fuck back in the day. So it's not like they don't deserve all of the scrutiny. It's just they could have come at a better time, right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if the allegations are true, certainly it seems like a bit of a wild place before they cleaned up their act. But I think you describe it accurately, you know? You take a gung-ho approach to build the market share, then you clean up your act and hope that you're rich enough to shake off your past.
Yeah, and I think that's probably going to be the case. At the end of the day.
I would get worried if the DOJ stuff really starts to come in, and this was the first part of a multi-part sort of multi-agency crackdown. That would suck. But if it's limited to, like, mostly CFTC and mostly about US users pre-2020, I think that's narrow enough for stuff to be okay. Much beyond that gets a bit unpleasant, I think.
Yep.
Also, I'm really glad that Binance put out an official statement on this, because initially CZ just tweeted his for thing, which I find so annoying and such terrible kind of crisis communication, risk management, whatever you want to call it, because it doesn't give any useful information. Like, if you call everything FUD, then that in itself just becomes noise, right? I don't know if it's completely false. I don't know if it's true but misrepresenting certain facts. I have no frame of reference for how seriously I should take these claims, right? If you just tweet for and that's it. So I wish you'd move away from that, but I'm glad there was at least some accompanying statement evidence. Because if it's just for, I mean, yeah, it's all, you know, at a certain point, it's just shoving your head in the sand and not addressing the claim. So I'm glad there was some sort of follow-up. Because it wouldn't hurt to know, like, how true is this, what do you think of it, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much exactly what I criticized back in the day.
Right.
Basically, like, very unprofessional behavior. On top of just, like, you fuck something up and then you act like an idiot, and people cheer you on for it. During the 18-19 bear market and in general, during that time, like, ZZ was the public hero #1, if you remember. And then you couldn't say anything against him. I was like, this is just so tiresome. Like, just act like a professional. This is casting a bad light on the industry, and I don't think the for tweeting really helps us.
I think it's designed for idiot fanboys, if I had to speculate. Yes. So they could, because they're not going to read the FUD anyway, and even if it were like extremely accurate and real and serious, they wouldn't believe it or engage with it. So it just becomes an easy code for people who are not willing to think to just tweet that out to, I don't know, show their support. But it's intellectually very lazy, poor communication, and thankfully they put something behind it. But I just don't. I mean, it's a good meme, I'll give it that. Like, the for meme is really good, but maybe memes aren't the best thing when dealing with like 3-4 letter agency investigations and allegations and lawsuits. Like, maybe not for that. Now, we did talk about your BTC position, Don. We talked about ETH. We talked about Litecoin. One position we didn't talk about was related to Donald Trump's indictment. And the headline goes, because he was indicted by a grand jury over the Stormy Daniels thing in Manhattan, I think. And so the headline goes, Donald Trump indictment breathes life into his NFT trading card collection. Donald Trump trading card NFT sales have spiked more than 500% in the last 24 hours, following news that the former president was indicted by a New York grand jury. Thursday night, when the news hit, more than $50,000 worth of Trump caricature emblazoned digital cards changed hands, and about $184,000 of the cards have been sold in the last 24 hours. The floor price is at 0.58 ETH or $1,000 according to OpenSea. So were you catalyst trading this, Don? Were you did you have all the DB ready and everything else to manage your Trump NFT position? Obviously the answer is no. But what kind of effect do you think this is going to have? Because this is shoving him back in the political limelight even more so, like properly now.
I mean, I honestly forgot about me having them at all.
Oh man!
So I saw, someone was like, "Oh, how are your Trump NFTs doing?" I was like, "Oh, why?" And then I checked it, and I was like, "Oh, it's up a little bit, but it's like $50,000 is like not that much. Like, I don't know why that's a news article, right? Like $50,000 on like a
illiquid market, especially
illiquid market in crypto. Like, that's not really anything to talk about, right? So, I don't know. It seems a little bit like an odd one to me. I don't think this is going to change anything. The only thing is, like, Trump is going to be in the headlight more. So, like you said, I think that's going to drive a little bit. Like, people see Trump and like, oh, he had an NFT, so I'm just going to buy it. So
get on a Zoom call with him from jail.
Yeah. But I think in general, if he gets if he gets nominated as the candidate again, I think that would do much, much more. And I don't really think this indictment is going to do him any disservice on that front. Like, I think it's, if anything...
Oh, mate, it would empower him, right?
Yeah, exactly. The more people talk about Trump, the more powerful he becomes.
Yes.
So, like, the most damaging to him, like, the most damaging thing to him, I think, has been his Twitter ban more than anything, right? Like, the guy, like, as long as he makes headlines, people care. At the moment he stops making headlines, people forget.
Yes.
So I think in general this could be good for the NFTs, but I mean I have my sales for like I think 3 times the current price, and then I'm
Right.
gonna start like selling some of them off. I think that's reasonable if it goes to 0, which I very much could see, because I mean it's not unlike Trump to come back and be like, oh, I made like 20 millions on this NFT project. Let me just mint like another
Yeah.
15,000, and then it's obviously gonna go to 0, right? Wouldn't be surprised. So like I'm just sitting in there for the fun of it, right? Like if Trump gets president, I'm not the biggest Trump fan. So if he gets president, I'll be at least happy about having made some money on the NFTs, because at that point I think they're gonna go up quite a bit. And if he doesn't, I'm just gonna like be like, okay, maybe it's the NFT of the first president in jail, right? And then I can be like, that'd be quite the collector's item.
Good for your gallery. Do you have more than 45 of them?
Oh, I have 90, I think.
Because look, it says here, purchasing 45 or more NFTs would guarantee purchasers an invite to a gala dinner with Trump in South Florida, the initial announcement said.
Yeah, but he's
Dude,
gonna...
so if you have 90, 45 times 2, we need to do Casual Friday with Trump in Florida.
I mean, it's Trump. He's gonna rug on that, obviously. So
Jesus. Yeah. You know what? I actually like. I'm also not a huge Trump fan. But I don't think like I don't want him to get arrested, because the reason for that is, can you imagine how compelling his whole "the establishment hates me, the swamp is swallowing me, Washington is corrupt" argument becomes if they like get him in handcuffs? I mean, narratively, that just gives that argument so much force that's like a momentum ignition type of situation.
I think you'd get trouble all over America.
Yeah, and it was entertaining to have him around as president, as someone who didn't have to live through it one way or another and don't have strong views. But I'm really tired of that kind of style of politics in general.
Yes.
But hey,
politics
the market
are
was
supposed
better.
to be boring.
Yeah,
so.
politics is supposed to be boring. Agreed.
And I mean, if you make it fun, you have problems.
So I guess we'll see you for Casual Friday in Mar-a-Lago one way or another with all these NFTs.
I mean, I'd go. If I get an
would.
invite, I'd go.
That'd be so good.
This is a 10 out of 10. It'd be so funny.
The last bit of news, which I presumably will be in the title of this video, US government sold 9,800 BTC on March 14th. So they were the ones SFPing the market. Intends to sell a further 41,500 BTC connected to Silk Road in 4 batches over the course of the year, according to a court filing shared by our friend DB. What do you think of this?
Most bullish unlock I've ever heard of.
What's the bullish unlock argument, if you had to articulate it?
I mean, the fact of the matter is they sold a shitload of Bitcoin and price went up, right? I mean, that's like... Because if you look back through the history of this bear market, right, the moment someone sold 10 Bitcoin, the market went down, right, because there was no one buying it. And apparently we had enough buying power on that day to just, in general, send it fully up, ignore the SFP at the top, no one cared, and we're trading much higher now. So like that's a bullish kind of thing to happen. Now, obviously, it's not bullish if they start selling stuff, because, I mean, it's just sell pressure. But at least we know that there's actually some bid support on this thing. But yeah, I think it's a little bit of a nothing burger, because they said they're going to sell it eventually. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But the execution's been dog shit if you look at the prices.
Yeah, it's been bad.
So it's an interesting one. Someone sucks there, but at least they sold into price going up, not into price going down.
Their history isn't very good either with their BTC sales in general, right?
Yeah.
As far as I can recall.
So, I mean, in general, like if you sold your Bitcoin 2017, 16, 15, 14, I mean, you're just like underwater, right?
Not having a good time. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, we are approaching Sailor's break even, which he managed to move down a smidge.
Yeah, so that's the bearish thing.
There's a real resistance for you, Don.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just the
that one I
retest.
take serious. The Sailor retest I take serious, because he's gonna be insufferable. So he's gonna get me to sell if he does dumb shit. But no, I on this one, I'm just, in general, like with Bitcoin right now, I'm trying to hold on as long as I can to as much of my position as I can, because I think the potential is great. but I can also see this being stifled. I think they're trying really hard. The establishment is trying, which is quite funny because like back in the day, everyone was saying this, but it was just not true. No one gave a shit.
Yes.
But I think now it's very, very apparent that
the swamp.
that the swamp is trying to fuck us over, and we'll see how that goes. If they fail, I think we just catapult up. If they succeed, I mean, that'd be really sad because then I think we can have low prices. So we'll see how that goes.
The fight of our lifetimes being fought on Japanese candlestick charts and TradingView.
Yep.
Excellent. I think that's plenty, Don. Thank you for your time and expertise coming on the show to talk to us about trading. Hope our audience has a wonderful weekend. Thank you for listening to Casual Friday. Apologies for the missed content. Like, subscribe, get us over 50k resistance, then maybe BTC will go over 30k or not. If we knew, we wouldn't be making YouTube videos. That's all from us, and see you next week.
Bye-bye.